Welcome to TheStreet.com TV. We're pleased to bring you some discussion on Jim Cramer's latest book, Stay Mad for Life. Welcome, Jim Cramer.
Welcome,
Congratulations, Jim.
Thank you.
You know, one of the, obviously you talk about how to stay wealthy and create wealth throughout your entire life. And how do you do that? You don't get poor.
Right.
You don't get into that trap. And one of the...
By the way, just so you know, if you read all my other books, particularly Real Money, like there is, and I have to admit that you need money to read Real Money. You have to have some money to read Real Money. This, you don't have any money. You don't have to have money, and that's a big difference. And there's a lot of Americans who don't. A lot of Americans who would read Real Money and say, well, listen, when I get some money, I am going to put this game plan in action. I had to write a book that gets it so that you have enough money to read Real Money, and that's why I say that I did this in the wrong order. I should have read Stay Mad for Life first.
You know, some of the biggest mistakes I think we make early on is spending on discretionary items that we don't have the money for. We think we deserve it. We think we can afford it. But you say that is one sure way into getting yourself into the debt or poor trap.
Right. I mean, I talk about the idea of that deserves has nothing to do with it, which is a line from the movie Unforgiven, which I like very much. And look, we try to. Why would I put a movies line in there? I mean, I'm trying to make this thing accessible.
Make connections.
Yeah. And you know, there is a profligacy that we have to undo. There is a Puritan thrift that I recommend in the book, and I think that I try to show you that you spend on a lot of stuff that you shouldn't. Now, is that self-evident, and have we read that before? Again, I'm not going to tell you that there haven't been people who've told you to save and not use credit cards. I will tell you that by not getting poor, you can put everything else that I have in the book on the way to get rich. But I've read way too many books which just talk about getting rich, where you're spending your darn fool head off, and then you try to layer on their plan, and it just doesn't work. So this plan is, I think, far more accessible for someone coming out of college, say, than any. You know, a lot of times when you read the books, and we did read all the financial books out there, they don't talk about what to do when you're not having any money. Susie Orman's done some good stuff on the notion of not of getting rid of your credit cards. But I'm trying to be a little more sophisticated, because I think the country's a little more sophisticated than that. I think the country has a greater idea than just cut your credit cards up. And we make a little fun of that in the book.
And you even say, maybe you should just get really scared for a second. Fear, the element of fear can really get you on the right track in some cases.
That's where when I talk about it, that I lived in the back of my Ford Fairmont. That I haven't talked about that since my autobiography and Confessions of a Street Addict. But that was central to my idea of getting out of the hole I was in. And I think that what I liked about my story, frankly, is that I think that everybody who buys Stay Mad was in better shape than I was. Now, I'm not asking you to go live in your car, but there isn't anyone who can say, you know what, if only I started with what Jim Cramer had, then I would be in better shape. And so I present Rock Bottom as being a great example of how something of goodness, of turning the adversity into goodness.
Well, hopefully we will not hit rock bottom, especially if you read Jim Cramer's new book, Stay Mad for Life. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks a lot, Jim Cramer.
We're putting some excerpts on TheStreet.com.
On TheStreet.com. This is, by the way, helped by Cliff Mason, your nephew.
Yes, indeed.
Thanks, Cliff. You're watching TheStreet.com TV. I'm Farnoosh Torabi. Stay tuned for more.